The brave Australian Gaza Flotilla warriors have just returned home to a hero's welcome from the mainstream media that really doesn't want you seeing who these people actually are or what really happened out there. So strap in, because I'm about to show you everything they're trying to hide. Last week, the latest performative flotilla to Gaza made headlines around the world after Israeli Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir posted a trolling video taunting detained activists, including footage of them zip-tied and forced to listen to the Israeli national anthem on repeat while he waved an Israeli flag. The outrage from the international virtue signalling class came fast. Back home, condemnations rolled in exactly where you'd expect, from Penny Wong to the Greens. But interestingly, this time even Senator Ralph Babet joined the chorus. So the question is, who exactly are all these supposedly principled politicians from the Greens to Babet rushing to defend?
My name is Sam Watson. I'm from Magunchen, so-called Brisbane.
Hi, my name's Isla. I'm from Bundjalung in so-called Australia.
I'm Annie. I'm from Nam.
What a mess. And this is the message these proud Aussies, the same left-wing extremists, even Senator Ralph Babet rushed to defend, took with them on their little mission.
Free Palestine, fuck Australia, fuck Israel, down with the colonies, long live the resistance.
Hates Australia, hates Israel, supports terrorism, so naturally gets the full backing of the Greens.
Amongst these Australians are Violet Coco and Zach Schofield, two people who I know, two people who are full of courage and activism and are full of compassion.
So who exactly were these two Australians this Green senator is rushing to defend? Well, first, meet Violet Coco, who used her time on the boat to taunt Australian Federal Police after revealing they had actually raided her home while she was on the flotilla over alleged vandalism of the US consulate here in Australia.
On the warrant for the raid on my house, which happened 3 days after I left for the Freedom Flotilla Coalition sail to Gaza, on the warrant there was a request to find a black shirt with the picture of a white possum on it.
What are you looking at?
Well, she's so funny, hilarious, so edgy. That's what we need more of, criminals in Australia. And the other activist personally endorsed by the Green senator is yet another professional protester.
My name's Zach Schofield. I'm a climate activist from Newcastle.
I know what you're thinking or asking, or should be thinking and asking. How do all these climate activists suddenly justify the massive carbon footprint of flying across the world, jumping on boats, then more planes and more boats again, only to inevitably get sent back on even more planes? Well, apparently Marine Faruqi has a perfectly rational explanation for why everything they've ever preached about the climate suddenly doesn't matter when there's an opportunity to jump on the latest anti-Israel publicity stunt, because apparently these loony leftists from Australia urgently needed to
Supply food, medicine, and aid workers.
Aid workers. This degenerate lot has probably never done a solid day's work in their lives. When they talk about aid, we literally watch them throwing their so-called supplies overboard before authorities boarded the boat.
Inshallah, that will reach Gaza, inshallah, we hope that.
Plastic bottles filled with nonsense. Oh, and let's not forget a handful of single chocolates thrown into the sea, because obviously their pollution was somehow going to magically swim its way over to Gaza to save the starving people.
Yo, Isahel, we said chickpeas and hummus on board. Hummus.
We're not idiots. It's definitely not about aid workers or even aid itself. It's just another performative stunt for Instagram clicks, likes, and activist clout. In fact, after the last group of Aussie clout chasers jumped on a flotilla, I caught up with their leader when he got back to Australia and asked him what their real goal actually was.
Good to see you, mate. I'm glad to hear you're back safe from your selfie yacht. How was the trip?
Just selfie yacht, huh?
That's what it was.
It was it?
What did you achieve?
Oh, you're talking about it, so maybe it is. It's a good selfie one.
Everyone was mocking it because you guys...
You live in your little... Well, I live in mine.
Yeah.
Not everyone does.
So anyway, what did it achieve?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot of people found out about it. I think it's good.
There you have it. Their mission was simple. Get people talking about them. And objectively, it worked. Not aid workers, just virtue signaling clout chasers pretending to care about starving Palestinians in Gaza. Because guess what? While these activists were busy staging Instagram activism on boats, this was the actual reality inside the Gaza Strip. It turns out starving Gaza looks to be doing pretty well without their plastic bottles and chocolate bar aid. Honestly, one of the biggest surprises coming out of Gaza lately is seeing clubs full of overweight men dancing around without a single woman in sight. Maybe that's the aid work Marie Faruqi was talking about. But personally, I think the Palestinian people have been through enough. They don't need to be punished further by having unwashed Melbourne lefties crash their parties. But in all seriousness, the outrage came after Ben Gvir posted videos mocking these deluded lefties after Israel had once again been forced to deal with yet another pointless activist flotilla. And if you actually watch the footage, sure, the authorities are forceful, but it's also pretty understandable given the choices these activists deliberately made, including this activist literally spitting at police while being removed from the boat. Disgusting. And if they did that to Australian authorities, I would support them in using whatever force necessary. The wild part is that while people like Penny Wong, the Greens, and even Senator Ralph Babbitt didn't seem nearly as outraged last year, when basically the exact same group of activist clout chasers flew into Egypt planning to march to Gaza, where they got absolutely bashed there, making what Israel did look like child's play by comparison. So it really makes you wonder why this incident suddenly sparked such outrage when, comparatively speaking, this was pretty tame. And if the argument is that Ben Gvir crossed some sort of line by taunting them afterward, fine. That kind of virtue signalling at least makes sense coming from Labor or the Greens. But Babette? Really? Let me ask you this. If a flotilla full of extremist leftists promising that the colony will fall was heading toward Australian shores, funded by hostile actors, does anyone seriously believe that Babette wouldn't support border authorities stopping them forcefully? Come on, he'd probably call it based, and he'd be right. In fact, if we're being honest, Babette would probably be the first guy wanting to film this victory so he could post it online. Ben Gvir is basically everything Babette wishes he was. And I'm not even saying I support what Ben Gvir did. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy. To be fair, I actually do think it was politically stupid for Ben Gvir to post the trolling video, even if I had a little giggle myself. Because the second he did that, he handed these perpetual victim activists exactly what they needed. Evidence they could use to launch another dramatic persecution narrative about Israel. And oh boy, did they milk it.
The Australian government at the highest levels, Prime Minister Albanese, Foreign Minister Penny Wong, have to pick up the phone now to their counterparts in Israel and demand the safe treatment and demand the immediate release of all the Australians who have been kidnapped in contravention of international law.
Our governments must say this is not okay. This is illegal. What's next for Israel? What else will they do? We have 6 Australians, there's 177 other volunteers from all over the world, and there are more boats.
Passionate words from these human rights activists who were almost as outraged as Senator Ralph Babette over the treatment of these great Australians and their international comrades. I still find it bizarre that they spend their lives trashing Australia only to immediately demand Australia come rushing to protect them the second things get uncomfortable overseas. And what's even more telling is how they claim all of this is supposedly about helping Palestinians. But when I caught up with him after the last flotilla, he seemed far less concerned about Palestinians being murdered than he is about his activist mates being taunted online.
What's your response to what Hamas has been doing in Gaza since the ceasefire? The execution of Gazans that you care so much about?
Yeah, I think a lot of them were executed because they were on the other side, mate.
The same guy crying his loony lefty mates got mocked is out there justifying the murder of the very Palestinians he claims they're fighting for. You can't make this stuff up. I told you, it's all performative. Need more proof? Just watch the footage of the activists arriving in Turkey after being deported. From these images, you'd think they'd survive some sort of torture camp. The only problem is, this was them just a few hours earlier casually walking themselves to the plane. It's all fake. Just look at this one. When she got to Turkey, they put her straight in a stretcher and in a neck brace, perfectly positioned for the waiting media to hear her dramatic sob story. Then barely an hour later, a modern-day miracle, the kind of recovery you only hear about in the Bible. Suddenly she's perfectly fine again and straight back to being a public nuisance. They're not even trying to make it believable anymore because they know most of the media are happy to amplify their lies without question.
A number of activists have arrived back in Australia after their Gaza-bound flotilla was seized by Israel. Now, several of them have accused Israeli authorities of physically abusing and sexually assaulting them during their detention.
I was sexually assaulted in this kind of torture chamber, and 5 men were bashing me and smashing my face.
Those monsters took pleasure in beating me, in sexually assaulting me.
They used pliers to get my earrings out, but they couldn't, so they just started gripping my ear and pulling it as hard as they could with the pliers, just because it was annoying them. They couldn't get my piercings out.
We were tortured.
I was kneed in the face again, I was kneed in the stomach, had my head slammed into the table multiple times.
They were all tortured, beaten and sexually assaulted. Every single one of them apparently was even bashed in the face too, which is an insane lie to make because it's the only one that just watching it we can prove is a lie, because not one of them had a single visible bruise. Seriously, the brazenness of some of these claims is unbelievable. They don't even bother trying to make these stories sound realistic anymore. And honestly, I think that mindset explains why so many of these activists were so quick to downplay or deny the very real atrocities of October 7, where women were actually kidnapped, beaten, gang raped, and murdered. If you're willing to casually weaponize allegations like that for politics, you probably assume everyone else is lying too. That's how we ended up in a time where completely absurd propaganda claims spread online, like stories such as Israel supposedly training dogs to rape prisoners. People believe that nonsense. But the insanity didn't stop there. After countries like Greece and Spain joined the international condemnation over Israel's treatment of these professional troublemakers, those same countries ended up giving them a far rougher welcome to country of their own when they returned. Violence is so much worse that we have to blur the screen so we don't get demonetized. And guess who suddenly supports the Spanish roughing up the exact same group he claimed were treated unacceptably just days earlier when Israel did far less to them? Yes, bipolar Babette. These people's politics are so transparent. When Israel does something, it always has to be evil. But when anyone else does it, even worse, suddenly it's fine, which is honestly even more embarrassing than just staying quiet like most of the people. But credit to Israel for trolling Spain after the Spanish government demanded an explanation over the alleged mistreatment of these same professional troublemakers just days earlier. Brilliant. But I do actually have criticism of Israel. Contrary to what these activists claim, you can criticize Israel without being anti-Semitic. Watch. My criticism is this. You've tried everything with these flotillas except one thing that would probably be most effective. Next flotilla, let these loony lefties into Gaza. Let them experience firsthand just how progressive, tolerant, and understanding Hamas really is towards people like them. Because honestly, we certainly don't need these degenerates back here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and share it far and wide so more people can see what the mainstream media refuses to tell you about the same people who are calling to tear down the Israeli colony while wanting to do the same thing here. And when you're done, head to followavi.com or scan the QR code on your screen to join the mailing list and follow me across all platforms so you never miss a thing. Followavi.com or scan now.